Hey guys, what is up? AwesomeTheSauce here. Hope you guys are having a great day and welcome to a video where I'm going to be reviewing some really new and cool spell changes. Now, if you've been here for, a little bit, you would have known that we already reviewed some of the older spells, and we also reviewed when they changed the Spellman pad so that they incorporated different pip values. Now, today, what we're going to be doing is reviewing the updates that those spells got. So I would assume that this is based on community feedback, based on maybe the videos that content creators like me made. This is going to be really big because some of these changes will shake up the meta quite a bit. Let's cover the changes and I'll give my honest ass review of how I like or don't like the direction that they're going. Alright, so the first big one is the life spell. This one got an insane, like, boost. So as you guys can see, compared to the previous video that we made on this, they have increased the number of rounds where the pacify effect is in place. So before, it was only pacify for one round for basically every pip value, but now what it basically does across all pip values is that it pacifies for 3 rounds, as you can see by this picture. What this does is make it so that, let's say someone's in Shrike, right? And they don't have any AoEs. If the Life Wizard has a minion out and they use it, the entirety of the Shrike actually gets completely taken out. If you don't have AoEs, it's gonna make it so you actually cannot hit the Life Wizard. I feel like what this is gonna do is open the road for Life Wizards to actually use their minions a lot, because now, instead of like the other way of doing it, it's actually gonna make sense to use the spell, and I'll show you why. Unlike some of the other minions, Life Wizards actually don't have a 3-pip minion. They actually only have, as you can see, they only have a 4-pip minion. What this means, right, if you have like 4 pips, a Life Wizard can only ever really hope to summon 1 Sprite Guardian, but if you have high pip conserve and you have 3 pip minions like Ice does, like Balance does, like Fire does, like Storm does, like basically a lot of the schools do, if you have 4 pips, you can actually summon a minion, you could conserve a pip, and then you can literally summon another minion. You can't do that on a Life Wizard. What that means is that if you're really going to be using a minion-oriented strategy, there better be a really good reason to do it, and I think this is the reason. If we're comparing the 7-pip version of the spell as well, compared to Hungry Caterpillar, it does quite a bit more. With Solar Surge as well, the way that it works, it's actually going to affect the 7-pip version at a much higher rate. On a Hungry Caterpillar, it's only a 250 enchant, but on the other one, on this the Grenadier spell that's coming, it'll be a lot more. So there'll be multiple reasons why this is just good, whether it's for a hit or whether it's with the minions. I assume that minions are probably going to be a little bit more prevalent, especially because I feel like now, with the way the direction of life and PvP in general is going, we're going to all have to pack hits in main. So I feel like that leaves a lot of room for what you could do with your side deck. Maybe minions are the answer for life. I could totally see a complete Shrike counter operating as a Life Wizard if you have the Sprite Guardian out. So that's a big deal. I think it's a huge boost for life. Let's move on to the next Test Realm spell change that they put out today. This is by far the most substantial boost I have seen from one Test Realm to another ever. Like, in a week, this spell got the hugest change you've ever seen. As you can see, the new spell Mockenspiel just got extremely powerful, but not by damage in terms of utility. So basically what the effect used to be was that convert 50% blade thing, right? It only really worked on one blade. That means that, let's say that I was on my Balance Wizard and I wanted to use this strategy for some reason, right? I'd put on an Elemental Blade and then I'd cast Mockenspiel, and one of my 35 blades would get converted to a 17.5 or I guess 18% blade. That's really underwhelming for a shadow spell. You know, like if you're, like there would have really been no point using it, except maybe at the highest pips, just for the damage, and that's it. But now if we're taking a look at like something like, let's look at the 7-pip version. Now what you're looking at is something that's extremely powerful. If you have an Elemental Blade on and you cast that, you're looking at least like 12, I think it's like 1300 to 1400 damage with Solar Surge, maybe a little bit more. You're looking at a ton of damage, and you're looking at 3 universal Balance Blades. I would assume one of the most meta strategies will be to Elemental Blade or Spirit Blade, and then you get 3 plus 20 blades on you, even after you do a really powerful spell. I think this is the first time I'm going to say this about any caramel spell. I think converting 3 times might actually be too powerful. Overall, I have a feeling that time will tell if the spell is too powerful, But this is one of the biggest buffs that Balance has ever gotten. Simple as that. And it really plays off of their school identity. But now, what a strategy that they could do is, they could pack a bunch of these elemental blades, or their spirit blades, and they could try to basically pressure a Hydra, maybe a Chimera, and if someone set shields, which normally would be the end of that completely, the only option right now without Mockenspiel would have been to go for a Scion with a bunch of blades. But now, with this update, you don't have to go for the Scion. You can keep the Scion as an option, but you could also just convert all of them. And what you could do after you convert all the blades is, because you still have the same number of blades, you could Scion. However, you could Scion with a universal buff added on. All I'm gonna say is this is just a really, really good buff for Balance. If I were to change it, I'd probably change it to 2 out of the 3. I know that seems very arbitrary. I just think with 3, especially considering there's a 3-pip version of this, as you can see on your screen right now, this 3-pip version can be comboed with Savage Paw and Strike like crazy. And I'm honestly not sure if that's good. I think the utility of it is so powerful that even the small pip version might be worth it for Balance. I don't know. This is just my opinion. It might be a little too powerful. Definitely the biggest buff. It used to be, it was awful in my opinion, and now it's usable. Ice's spell also changed in Test Realm. Now Shatterhorn taunts for 3 rounds instead of 1. It's very similar to the life change. This is a little bit different because this isn't really as much of a buff in PvP. The reason why I say this is because while Pacify distracts your opponent from you, Taunt basically locks them onto you. And unless you're trying to protect a minion like crazy, I don't really see how that could really work. Let's say you were to summon a minion and you pip conserve, you know, you do all that, you do all the normal jazz with your minion, right? Let's say that you cast an Ice Guardian and you want to protect it for 3 rounds. If you were to cast the 7-pip version of it, it's a much better move than Abominable for damage, but it's also it leaves you much more vulnerable. Now here's the thing. Not only do you lose the vulnerability, you lose the level of protection that you got from Abominable, you're also locking your opponent onto you, even if your minion can survive. I feel like Abominable is such a good spell that it would have been very hard to make a spell better than that without being overpowered. I just think that this adds a very situational element to how Ice plays. The reason I say this is because you already are the school where people are going to have to lock onto you to do as much damage. A taunt doesn't really help that much. You have to do damage to an Ice thoroughly throughout the match in order to keep up with their Abominables, because their Abominables are very free moves because they're protected whenever they do it. So I feel like the way Ice plays, I don't really think they needed a buff. In my opinion, they're the least needed school for a buff, in my opinion. So I'm glad that this is a very situational spell. I think, again, time will tell. Will this be that good of a spell? I think here's the problem with the idea of people thinking that this will, like, infinitely protect minions, even with a 3-pip version, like you see right here on your screen. Even if you were to use this over and over again, right? The problem is, 1, you could always kill the minion on the first turn, because it's turn-based, right? You always have 1 round to react, so you can always kill the minion. And 2, you're not, as an Ice, gonna get a Shadow Pip every 3 rounds anyways, so there's no way you're gonna be able to infinitely protect your minion, unless you're running extremely high Shadow Pip chance. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Ice Wizards in the comments, prove me wrong if you think this is broken, maybe, I don't know. I just think it's very situational. It's a slight buff. It's a slight buff to Ice. Nothing crazy at all. And finally, let's look at the death spell that they added in Test Realm. They updated the spell anyway. So this is really exciting. Let's compare Snack Attack now. It got a damage buff, if you guys are wondering. It's a very powerful damage buff compared to what it was before. This is about 100 extra damage. So now, I'm using the 7-pip version, even though there are other pip versions, as is true with all of these. The reason I'm using the 7-pip version is just because it is going to be the one that most Death Wizards are going to want to use. This is an extremely powerful spell now, and I am very excited because Death needs a huge buff, and honestly, not being able to be affected by weaknesses might be the buff that we've all been asking for. You could always Prism to get rid of set shields, and you can always Strike to get rid of shields. However, Death never had a good... like, you know, they never had a good response to a weakness other than a Want It or a Green Oak. And 1 is very pip, like, it costs a lot of pips. And Want It's, unfortunately, in order to get them, you need to go through your main deck, and a lot of people blade with their main deck, so it's very hard to control those two. Finally, Death won't be the school that can be hard countered by Ifrits, by King Art even, by weakness in general. In fact, a weakness on on a death with a Shadow Pip, especially if they have blades up, is now a very, very bad move. I'm not saying that death is going to be extremely good at 1v1. I think that's going to take a lot of time before they get that good. But this is a very, very meaningful buff. And I think this is something that a lot of people actually are going to enjoy as a death wizard. I think this is the biggest buff to any other school, even including balance. I think this just changes the nature of the way you can actually play death, and that's really, really exciting. That's really, really exciting. So yeah, these are all very, very positive changes. I think for Ice and Life, they get some very situational cards, especially Ice, although they can be very, very powerful if you use it right. As always, y'all, these kind of videos only work when you give your opinion, so let me know what you guys think about all the new spells in the comments below. Do you guys think these are good buffs? Do you think they're overpowered? What do you guys think? As always, drop a like if you're enjoying, leave a sub if you're new. Thank you for all the love, my mans. Thank you for all my patrons. There's new merch. I'm putting it in the description. If you're a patron, you can get some free complimentary merch as well, so check out my Patreon in the description. As always, if somebody has not told you you're awesome today, they doing something wrong, so stay awesome. And yeah, y'all.